Welcome to the Cultivating Leader podcast, a podcast for founders and people leaders who know that culture isn't written in policy. It's felt in every emotion your team experiences at work. I'm Sarah Dena, co-founder of The Cultivators and managing director of New Wave Learning. And in each episode of this podcast, I explore what it really means to be a cultivating leader. You'll hear stories, insights, and practical moves for turning emotion into a strategic lever for performance, loyalty, and growth. I'm excited. So let's get into it. Hello, my name's Sarah Dena, and I want to welcome you to this one-to-one episode of the Cultivating Leader podcast. These solo episodes that run alongside my podcast with my guests have been inspired by conversations that I'm having with those guests, LinkedIn posts that I'm engaging with, discussions I'm having at networking events, or even reflections from client projects that we're delivering. In these podcasts, it will just be me, you, the listener, and my thoughts, with the intent to inspire you to think and feel something different about leadership and culture after you've listened. Whatever the subject, you can be confident that we'll focus on the topics that are important to the cultivating leader, the future of work today. So settle in and we'll get into this episode where I ponder the question, what actually defines a leader? Do you feel like a leader? That's the question I asked a group of 20 senior business partners in a law firm last year. Only one hand went up. Just one. A few more hands rose slowly, almost cautiously when I added some context, but the level had been set. These were talented, senior people, and yet the word leader didn't feel like it belonged to them. I remember at the time thinking, seriously? How can this be the case? And in that moment, the purpose of the whole development programme became crystal clear. By the end, every single one of them needed to feel confident raising their hand to that question. Because here's the truth. Leadership isn't about your job title. It's about how you make people feel. And it's about whether the impact you have matches the intent that you carry. At a networking event last week, the conversation centred on this same question, what makes a leader? There are some core and consistent values that people expect from those who lead. Things like accountability, integrity, vision, adaptability, and empathy. Daniel Goleman's work on leadership traits adds another layer with things like self-awareness and influence. But if I had to choose, the one I believe is most needed in leaders in today's world is courage. In a conversation last week, I was reminded of the 6 signature inclusive leadership traits as defined by Deloitte's research from 2015. I was struck by the significance of courage in leaders, but also in their ability to create the conditions for more than safe spaces in the people they serve. We need brave spaces in the increasingly complex dynamics and pressures facing people as we understand what the future of work not only looks, but feels like. And it's not just for the purpose of inclusion, although this does make things better for everyone. Because courage is what keeps culture the focus instead of compliance. Courage is what makes collaboration possible in the face of competition. And courage is what allows leaders to have the hard conversations with humility and respect, instead of avoiding them or powering through with fear. This got me reflecting about the leaders I've gone the extra mile for and those that create that brave space. I was recently asked a question, who are the leaders that you'd go over the top for? I didn't have to think for long. When a leader makes you feel safe and makes you feel that you can be brave, that feeling sticks with you for a really long time. 3 names came to mind: Nick Falkingham, Nigel Crabb, and Jeremy Dean. There are many stories I could share about the impact of these 3 leaders, but here are my highlights. It was 2004, my first proper job since graduating, and Nick gave me a letter of recognition. I still have it now. It meant that much to me. It was personal, thoughtful, and it was delivered to me in public. So I got both the things that I needed: appreciation that was meaningful to me and recognition that others could see too. In 2010, Nigel invited me to rejoin his team in a global employee engagement role after the organisation that we were both working for was acquired by another. I felt trusted, valued, and safe to take on a new challenge. I hadn't wanted to simply be a number in the acquiring company's system, but that combination of security, trust, and freedom is rare, and it gave me the confidence to grow a successful career in a very new direction for me. And finally, Jeremy. Very recently, he listened to some new ideas I was having about building the UK community for his organisation, Riders and Elephants. Even when my ideas were very different to his own. He didn't just listen, however, he was open-minded enough to consider my rationale and to be open to trying something new and different from how he was expecting this to play out. First of all, he gave me his time, which is incredibly precious, his guidance and his practical help in promoting the event, which, in turn, gave me visibility and credibility in a community where I was, to many, relatively unknown. With Jeremy, I feel seen, respected, and valued for my creativity and my passion. Different leaders, different contexts, and different times in my career, but the same thread runs through them all: care, curiosity, compassion, connection, and humility. They all balance strength with openness. They all made me feel something as leaders that has stayed with me long after the event, building my confidence, trust, and loyalty, not just in me, but in others that they lead. Their leadership values set the tone for the culture they built in the teams they were responsible for. And that's why I've been exploring the relationship between values and culture. And here's where I've landed for now. Values are the principles by which decisions are made. Culture is the everyday small moment practices that help those principles come alive and be lived. So, for example, when Nick writes his letter, Nigel offers trust, or Jeremy listens with openness. Those aren't grand gestures. They're small human actions, but they're how values like recognition, growth, and respect get lived. And that's culture. So, what makes a leader? For me, leadership is about being intentional about how you make people feel. It's also about minding the gap when the impact doesn't align with your original intent. Leadership is about immersing yourself in the discomfort of reflection. Reflections for yourself, but also reflections from others, so that you can grow. It's about asking more and telling less, and more importantly, listening to understand, not just to hear what you need to hear to defend or justify your position, or listening so that you can plan your reply before the person is finished. Leadership is also about acknowledging when you're wrong and then learning from it quickly. And it's about holding people to standards without holding those standards against them when they fall short. Because when that happens, they don't need judgment, they need your guidance. So here's a simple reflection for you to take away from this podcast. Do you feel like a leader? If you hesitated in your response, ask yourself why. Is it because of the culture you're in? Is it because you're waiting for someone else to tell you that you are a leader? And if you do feel like a leader, does your team feel that too? Do your actions, your words, and your intent all line up in a way that makes them feel led, not simply managed? Thank you for joining me for this one-to-one conversation on what makes a leader. If today's episode sparked something for you, I'd love to hear what resonated, and even more, how you'll take it into your own leadership practice. Connect with me on LinkedIn and let's continue the conversation there. Until next time, I'm Sarah Dena, and this has been the Cultivating Leader podcast.